Okay, it's 10:30 a.m. and we're going to check on the starter that I have in here. And I fed it, so there's a little bit of starter on the bottom of the jar, and I added 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour, and I stirred it. And I put the string here to measure how much it has risen. So you can see that it has about doubled in the last 4.5 hours, and I also left it under like a warm stove light. So it would also work if you turn on the light in your oven light, and just put it in there. So let's just look at the starter and see if it's ready and what it looks like. Ooh, some nice bubbles. You see the tang there. So I would say it's about ready to make the bread. Okay. This is what a starter looks like when it's ready. You can see it's full of holes. It has doubled in size, so at this moment we want to go ahead and start using it. We don't want to wait too long, otherwise it will overproof and lose its potency. Here I'm just going to prepare the ingredients for a nice small loaf. So I turn the scale on, and I need about 250 grams of flour. I'm using organic bread, unbleached flour here. So 250, perfect. And I can set this aside. Next, I want to measure out the water. And I usually mix the water, the honey, and the salt all in one. All right, so first I will add in the water with the salt and the honey already dissolved in it. And I'm doing that to make sure that my starter is ready to use. So if the starter is ripe, it will sort of float in the water, will not sink. So pretty good. I see that the starter is floaty, nice and floaty, so that means that it is just about ready. Just stir it in a little. And next I'm going to start with the flour. So right now we're just making a nice small loaf. Nothing big or fancy. So I'm going to add all the flour. And mix it all up. At some point I'm going to start mixing with my hand. And the trick is to run your hand under cold water, so that way the dough will be less prone to stick to your fingers. But I will get as much as I can pre-mixed with the spatula here. And after I'm done mixing, I am going to put this back, maybe into the oven with the oven light on, or on top of the stove with that warm overhead light. Cover it up with a towel, not paper towel, but a regular cotton linen towel, and let it rest for about 30 or 40 minutes. So this is part one. All right, so part one is done. Notice that I'm using a glass bowl, or you can use a ceramic bowl, just not metal. Or you can use plastic too, because apparently sourdough starter reacts with metal and it doesn't turn out well. So in the glass bowl, I'm going to cover it up with a towel and leave it under this light, which kind of warms it up. Okay, we're going to check check the dough a little bit. It's been about 30 minutes. You can see how the gluten started relaxing. So I am going to wet my hands in cold water. And with wet, cold water hands, I'm going to start my stretch and fold, trying to give shape to this bread. And just shape it into a little bun. So you don't want too much cold water in your hands either, because this is a pretty high hydration dough. And this is really enough. We're going to tuck it back in and let it rest for another 30 minutes or so until we come back and repeat. So basically pull, fold, pull, fold, pull, fold, pull, fold, and all 4 sides. Okay, so I just did a final set of stretch and fold. And as you can tell, the dough is much more elastic than the first 2 times. It's starting to form some bubbles if you look closer, which tells me it is about ready to go in the fridge for cold proofing. And yeah, here are the bubbles. It's important not to overhandle it. So again, I folded it over 4 times. I'm going to leave it for another 30 minutes. And then when I come back, we're going to shape it for cold proof. This area, I'm going to dust some rice flour, which is gluten-free, so it's not going to affect our ratios or the flour, but it's going to help for the dough to not stick. And next I'm going to pour out this beautiful mix that we have right here, directly on the counter. Okay, and this is when I'm going to do one more shaping. See all the bubbles in the dough? One more shaping, so kind of fold it over neatly, like this, and just let it chill for another 30 minutes. Let's use that clean cotton towel to cover it up and let it rest. Okay, so now our bread is about ready for final shaping. So first I'm going to take a nice deep bowl, maybe a ceramic bowl. I'm using a wooden bowl here. And I'm going to line it with this cotton towel. And I'm going to put some rice flour here on the bottom to prevent it from sticking. So again, it's gluten-free and it's going to not interfere with the development of the gluten. You can tell that this is ready. See all the bubbles coming up to the surface. So I'm going to use a scraper right now, like this, to give it its final shape. If you don't have a scraper, you can really use your hands too. So again, either run cold water over your hands or use a little bit of rice flour so the dough doesn't stick to it. And what we're achieving to do very gently without popping the bubbles or popping as few as we can, we're creating tension on the surface of the bun. So here, like this, see? So I'm kind of tucking the layers under Okay, so what I'm doing is tucking the layers under and pushing the little baby bun towards myself. So the surface of it is nice and smooth and tense, like this. And next I'm going to grab it, flip it around, so see, and transfer it to the bowl here. And underneath is definitely not perfect, so what I'm going to do is use both of my hands here, ideally. Let's see if I can free up the hands to tuck it in. So to create a tuck here, like this. So that's one way. And then take this edge and fold it over the other edge. So we really created as much tension as possible. So this part will go on the bottom of the cast iron, and overnight I'm about to transfer it in the fridge. Overnight it will finish proofing, so the yeast will continue developing the gluten structure, breaking, so probably like more fermented bubbles. By the morning I'm going to use the rest of the rice flour and slightly powder the bottom, and that way the bread will not stick to the towel. I loosely wrap it, and then I'm going to use another towel to wrap it again to prevent the dough from airing out dry. And at this point I put it in the fridge. I usually use the top shelf. And the next thing that we're going to do first thing in the morning, it's right now 6 p.m, is preheat our oven and get to baking.